Hello and welcome to SEGA News Bits. I'm Barry, with me is George.
Doop, 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 doop.
And today we are going to be talking about the top 100 SEGA games. Now, what the hell is that? It is a list that I have been hard at work making, compiling, collecting votes for. It started back in October 2015, which is a long time ago, I'll admit. But we started gathering top 25 lists from fans across the internet. So we were collecting them on Facebook, we were putting the call out on Twitter, they were posting it on our forums, they were posting it on our website, and I gave everyone 1 year to make these lists and submit them because, you know, people are lazy, they take time to do things. So, you know, if I give them a year.
Yeah, I know. I did mine like last minute, so. I mean.
Yeah, you were the last one. Yeah, and so the intention was to make a top 50 SEGA games list, but as I was collecting these lists, I realized that I have a lot of data to the point where I could do a top 100. Technically, I could have done a top 150, but you gotta stop it at a nice number for those search analytics. And so, you know, what happened? Well, after compiling everything, I got to this list that we're going to talk a little bit about. I'm not going to spoil it. You can click on over to SEGAbits.com. It's there in the sidebar. It's going to be in the sidebar for a while, and it's also on the main page, at least for now, as you're viewing this video within the next week or two.
You want to give them a warning here?
Yeah.
You start at number one.
Yeah, I got some flack for starting at number one. My thought is it's a top list, so I'm gonna put the big boys at the top. Now, if you are like, oh, no, I can't scroll through it and see number 100 at the top, then I'm sorry. But
close your eyes and then scroll all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And then ignore the comments because they're gonna make you mad. And then just go and then just start from the bottom to the top.
Yeah. So really, there's a very small area that's safe for you.
And you can look at the article actually in the description. I'm just letting them know.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about what the clear favorites were. We're not going to, I guess we might spoil a few things here. So why don't you check out the list if you really want to see it and then click back over and keep watching. What did you expect to be a clear favorite in the top 5 there out of those 5 games?
Shenmue was easy. I'm surprised at some that didn't make it, but Sonic the Hedgehog was obviously any of the classic ones. I didn't know which one was going to be. I knew the number 1 spot was going to be a Sonic game. I just didn't know which one of the 3 Sonic games it was. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be 1, so I'm not really surprised it was 2. And yeah, I'm not really that surprised. I'm surprised that Phantasy Star Online was so loved by everybody, because I think a lot of people back then, I mean, they liked it. It was a great game, and it had the online focus, and it was one of the first big online games for a lot of Sega fans. But it was kind of empty. Like, if you did not have online, that game was probably didn't have that much content to keep you busy, I think.
Yeah, so that definitely, I mean, just that top 10 alone has a lot of clear favorites, surprises, and, you know, maybe some games that people might be like, why isn't that in the top 10?
Ooh.
Which we'll get to.
I didn't say this at the number 10, whatever. Valkyria Chronicles, I'm surprised is so well loved.
Yeah, Valkyria Chronicles was the only third-party era game to crack the top 10, which is very impressive. I mean, I don't know if someone at SEGA sees this list and this might influence them. My hope is that someone at SEGA saw this and brought it up at a meeting and was like, look at this list.
And then they look at it, they look at it and they're all trash.
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't something, like I mentioned at the top of the show, this isn't something that I came up with. This isn't me. This isn't George. This isn't the SEGAbits staff. This isn't IGN with their bullshit top 100 video games list, which has not a single SEGA title, which is why I started making this list. That's bullshit. Come on.
I agree. Bullshit.
That's absolute bullshit. You cannot make a top 100 video games list and not even include Outrun. Come on.
Or even
Panzer
Dragoon Saga, or, you know, Streets of Rage. Come on.
It's political bullshit.
It's just insulting, and I'm not making an act. This is like me getting a little venti latte. Another clear surprise, or actually a clear surprise, a clear favorite on here. You know, we were talking about the Sonic games. Sonic 2 is number 1 on the list.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised.
Why is that? Well, I feel like it was. People need to keep in mind that the games on this list some of the ones that did really well were marketed really well. Phantasy Star Online, I think, had some awesome marketing from Sega at the time. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was probably the most heavily marketed Sonic game in my opinion.
Was had a gajillion-dollar budget on the marketing.
And so, you know, I feel like that combined with the fact that Sonic 2 is probably the one Sonic game that more people owned than anything else. And the fact that it's just a good all-in-one package. I mean, it's a great sequel, it's a great standalone title. Sonic 3 and Knuckles was combined for the sake of this list because I knew that they would fall so close to each other, like, to the point where you're making the list and you're like, do I say Sonic 3 is better than Sonic and Knuckles? Do I say Sonic and Knuckles? Anyway. How about, let's talk about what's missing. What surprised you that didn't appear on the list?
I think people already said it in the comments right away. Obviously, Virtual Tennis, I'm really surprised it didn't, you know, get on the list. I think another personal favorite for me was Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, but I could see why that one didn't make the list. It was arcade only. Nobody really played it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of games like that in Sega's history. Shadow Dancer, I love, but I see a lot of people don't really care for it. Since it's a Shinobi game, but with a different title, people forget it exists. And yeah, those are the ones I'm surprised.
Yeah, and I mean, I can totally understand that. Like I said, again, you need to take marketing into consideration. You also need to take into consideration games that have a lot of titles. For example, the Yakuza games. The first one I think that actually places on the list is, if I'm not mistaken, Yakuza 4 is number 49. And some people were mad about that, but remember, this list was compiled before I think Yakuza really made a return last year.
Yeah, now it's like the bee's knees, right?
Yeah, I'll bet you if we did this again in 5 years, which I might, who knows, I'll bet you that Yakuza 4, Yakuza 2, Yakuza 5, Yakuza 0, I think even Kiwami, or 6, I think those all could make the list. I think they're fantastic games that people are really just now discovering.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, just be happy that Yakuza 4 made the list when you consider that this list was compiled when the franchise was really kind of in a dark period. I mean, this was made before 5 came out, I believe.
Yeah. And
to the West.
I'm a little, not really surprised about that, but like I said, I think the Yakuza franchise deserves at least to, you know, peg down Valkyria Chronicles. I mean, they're different games, but I feel like I don't know. I really like the Yakuza franchise, so I'm biased. Yeah,
and I think the same goes for Virtua Tennis. We talked about this off air. Virtua Tennis and Virtua Tennis 2, also aka Power Smash 2. They're fantastic games, but I think a lot of people forgot about them. I think a lot of people just deem them sports games, and I think a big reason is because, at least in America, it was Tennis 2K2. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I think people forget about it. And Virtua Tennis 3 did not make the list. Virtua Tennis 4 did. Well, I should say, okay, Virtua Tennis was number 252.
Damn.
Virtua Tennis 2 was 263, and Virtua Tennis 4 was 275. And that's not great, but I feel like you have to also consider every single Sega game was going against these titles.
I'm gonna name a couple of games for you, and you can tell me if are you surprised that it made the list. All right?
Okay.
Comic Zone at number 66. Are you surprised at that one?
I'm not really surprised. I feel like Comic Zone, that makes about sense. You know, I feel like it's a good title. It's a difficult title though, so I can see it not having as much appeal as it should.
How about number 73, Dynamite Headdy?
That surprised me. I mean, it's a great game. However, when I was making this list, I had a lot of rules in place about, you know, what counts, what doesn't. Treasure games do count, but I felt like a lot of people might be making the list and they'd still be very strict with themselves and being like, no, I'm not picking a treasure game. But as you can see, I think almost all of Treasure's games made the top 100.
And we have a tie here with Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System, you know, not the regular version, and Project Diva F2. Are you surprised that there's a lot of the, you know, Hatsune Miku fans, or what is it? Hatsune Miku fans showed up?
I'm not surprised. This list was compiled throughout 2015 and 2016. The Project Diva games were new to fans around that time, and so I think it was just kind of the hot title. And I also think, I don't think a lot of Miku fans flooded the votes, because I've looked at a lot of lists with Project Diva, and they were very well thought out lists with non-Miku games. But I mean, hey, two Miku games made the list, so I mean...
Yeah. And I was going to say, how about Deep Fear, number 87?
That made me very happy, because that's a fantastic game that I think... I mean, you know, it just goes to show that not every title on this list is a popularity vote, even though it is a popularity vote. Like, the fact that something so, I guess, kind of obscure can make the list at 87, beating out the likes of Virtua Tennis. It's interesting. And again, you know, don't get mad about this list. This isn't the end-all, be-all. This isn't us proclaiming no games are better than these games. It was a sampling, it was a vote, and it's just a fun thing to do. And I think it's cool to see games like this make the list. Okay.
Sonic R being tied with Streets of Rage 3.
I won't lie, I knew that some of these Sonic games would make it in. Sonic R, it has that nostalgia value. I'm gonna get a lot of hate from some people, but it's not... I'll just say it's not the perfect game.
Yeah, see, you saw my list. I would just put Outrun 2, and then it'd just go down from there, you know?
Yeah.
But I think this list is pretty alright. I mean, considering... I mean, it's not, you know, in line perfectly with what I like, obviously. It'll never be.
Mm-hmm.
It'll never be the way you guys like either. And that's fine, because this is other people's opinions. And so it's not that bad. It has a lot of... variations. Like, there's a lot of like different franchises here represented. While it might be a little too Sonic-y for my taste, some of it, there's still a lot of stuff that isn't Sonic.
Yeah, and I guess for some closing thoughts from myself, in terms of the top 10 games, there is analysis at the end of the article, so when you click on over there, you'll see some fancy charts. It'll show you the rise and fall of the favorite games. I think that's really interesting. 1993 was the most popular year for favorite games, and 2010 and 2012 were also incredibly popular. It's also worth noting that the top 10 has games from about every period of Sega's history, and also I think even all the genres are almost covered there, so that's pretty cool. And then I guess, you know, I was going to end complaining, but I'm not going to complain. I think what I'm going to say is, if you see a game, let's say in the top 2, that you you don't like or you don't think belongs there, ask yourself this question: have I played it? If you haven't played it, you don't deserve to complain about it being on the list, because you need to play these games. You need to experience it for yourself. These are beloved games for a reason, and there's a lot of reasons. It might be nostalgia. Who knows? You make that assessment for yourself. That's all I gotta say.
And you guys can tell us in the comments below what's your favorite Sega games. What did you disagree with on the list? Complain to us. Let us know. And we love your tears, so please keep them flowing.
And we love you, so you can never win. Love conquers all.
All right. Make Sega 1993 again.
Yeah, right? I want to make that hat. Oh, that's going to be a good hat.